Hello everyone, and welcome back to our third video that we're making here today on General English, covering a range of different topics. My name is Gavin Scott on behalf of Gate English Training School. Thank you very much for watching. Let's get started. Today's topic is Lesson 3, Work. Now, this is more about how you would get a conversation started at work, and also we'll look at some basic vocabulary for the workplace. Okay, first of all, this is my school in Weihai, Gate Education. As you can see, it's designed to look like a traditional Chinese gate with the red pillars there with the opening there. If you are in Weihai, please come in and say hello and see about classes at our school. Otherwise, enjoy these videos from wherever you are. Now, why is it an important topic? Well, as in our last lesson when we talked about hobbies, this is one of the most common ways we get to know people. It's also one of the most common things to talk about in society. When we're at school, we talk about our classes and our hobbies. When we're at work, we talk about our work and our hobbies. They're kind of the two things we talk most about. The third thing would probably be family. Whatever we do, whether it's work or studies, the things we like to do in our free time, and our family. Those three topics cover probably 80% of conversations people have in their daily life. If you can't talk about your work, it makes life difficult. In terms of my ability to speak Chinese, I can generally talk about my hobbies and my work, not necessarily a lot of other topics, but they're the things you need the most and the things you talk about the most. So, for your work, whatever that work is, very much like we said with your hobbies, you need to read about it. Because, of course, not only do you need to talk about it with friends and people around you, you actually maybe need it for your job. So, of course, if you need English for your job, you need to do a lot of reading online to learn the language, the vocabulary for your job. Now, I would suggest you sign up for journals, even pay for them if it's an important thing. Say you work in IT, you're an IT engineer. You have a lot of vocabulary in English that is commonly used all over the world. And every month, there will be magazines or journals being released online or in paper form that you can, that you can read and learn all the latest vocabulary, all the vocabulary and all the latest developments. And that's important, the latest development. What is changing in your work? So you can talk about it with your colleagues and people around you. Oh, this thing is changing in my industry. Okay, so please read journals and, of course, learn the vocabulary. You can do this through the journals and through things you read online. You can also maybe do it through some special vocabulary application. As we talked about in one of our earlier lessons, please do not just get a Chinese dictionary and look up the English words. That's not the best way to learn vocabulary. Learn from journals, look for online videos, and sometimes there might be specialist vocabulary books for your area of work. If you work in hotels, there's often hotel English. If you work in computers, there's IT English. If you work in sales, there will be often salesman English magazines and books that you can buy or look at online. Join discussion boards and network. Now, these two things are kind of connected. You can network face-to-face. Often in a major city like Beijing or Shanghai, they will have conferences where people from your industry. Now, industry is an important word. If you don't know the word industry, you should know this word. I'm a teacher, so my industry is the education industry. So all people that work within the area of teaching people, whether teaching children or teaching adults, our industry is education. So every year, or more often, there will be many education conferences. Now, conferences when many people come together to talk about their industry, to talk about the latest changes, to learn from each other, to make connections, to build relationships. That's called networking. Now, you can network at conference, or you can network by talking to people online. So again, as I mentioned in the last video, you have online discussion boards about sport. You also often have specialized places you can go. Now, I can't tell you where to go to this. I know that you have LinkedIn is a common website for industry-related conversation. There might be a Facebook page for people. I know there is a Facebook page for ESL, for English teachers, and there's a lot of conversation going on there, people sharing ideas. Outside of Facebook, there might be a special website for your industry. So you just need to search for that on the internet, and it should not be too hard to find. Ask other people at work. So again, this is a way so you can learn and develop your English skills within that. Of course, within your own country, hopefully you do already network with the people in your industry. But if you want to improve the English of your industry language, that's what you can look for online. And I'm not too sure what this woman's doing. I think she could be an engineer, she could be a welder, she's doing some kind of mechanical or laboring job there. I thought today we're going to start with the conversations. In our last lesson, I went through some common hobbies, and then we looked at conversations. I'm going to swap that around today. I think it would be better to spend more time on conversations. And then for individual jobs, you can find out more about your job, because there's just too many different jobs. There's thousands of jobs. I can't talk about all of them. So most commonly, you are going to meet people outside of work or in work. Now, let's say more commonly, you're going to talk to people outside of work, people that you meet on your travels, your friends that you go to a party and you meet other people. And one of the first things you're going to ask if you're not a student is going to be, hello, where are you from? So what do you do here? So what do you do? Now, don't think it's like I sleep at night, I eat, and I sometimes walk and talk. It's not what do you do? What do you do? The question basically means what's your job? But it's a bit more open. The reason we ask this question, what do you do, is because not everyone has a job. If you're a student, if you're a housewife, what's your job doesn't really work in all situations for all people, which is why it's probably more common to say, what do you do, when you meet somebody that you don't know very much about them. If somebody says, I'm in China. What are you doing in China? I'm working. What's your job? You know they have a job, then you can ask that question. But often if you're a student, that makes it a nice open question. So what do you do? I'm a teacher. Fairly simple. Where do you work? Now, this can mean a couple of things. It can mean the place you work. I work in Sydney. I work in Beijing. I work in Weihai. Or it can mean what company. I work for Gate Education. I work for IBM. I work for a furniture factory that you probably haven't heard of. They might tell you the name of the company or the area where you work. I work in a factory in the south of the city. So if it's not a famous company, you might just say the area that you're located. And again, that usually gets things started. But that alone isn't really enough. The thing you need to be able to do then is maybe give a little bit more information about your job. So that's the question we're going to look at for a few things. So how long have you worked there? I've been there 3 years. This is my first year. I've been there just a few months. So how long have you worked there? I have worked there for 3 years. Or I have worked there since 2015. Okay, so follow the grammar of the question, as we talked about that in the IELTS exam. What exactly do you do? Now, this is a question I'm going to look at for each job later on. What exactly do you do? So someone says, I'm a salesperson. Okay, so what exactly do you do? Now, meaning within that job. So I'm going to choose a job that I don't think I have on my list. I am a carpenter. Carpenter, what exactly do you do? I mostly make tables. like from wood, and like not just regular cheap tables, but we make really good quality tables that cost a lot of money, and we make it by hand using equipment rather than using a factory setup. So we're explaining the things we do within that job. Now, for many of you, you don't have a job, but that's a key thing there, that once you have a job, that will be an easier question to answer, to explain yourself. Because a lot of jobs are not obvious. Now, of course, if you say you're a teacher, that might be quite an easy thing to explain. But for some jobs, it can be very difficult to explain exactly what we do within that job. What do you like about the job? Oh, I love working with my hands. I love when I make the table and you feel the smooth wood after you've finished it. And then you stand back and look at the table. It's just like a beautiful piece of art. Some other questions you might talk about there. How do you travel to work? Oh, I usually take the bus. Oh, I drive. It's a 40-minute drive. It's quite slow in the mornings with the traffic. It's quite annoying. Is it a big company? Oh, no, it's a very small company. There's only about 15 people working there. We have 4 salesmen and 5 mechanics. So these are some common questions that people could talk about when you meet somebody for the first time for their job. Now, before we look at individual jobs, I just thought I'd throw in some common office vocabulary that maybe you don't know. So I'm just going to say the answers to these. So have a look around here, because probably 70% of people coming to study through me probably aren't going to be working as a farmer or a mechanic or a carpenter. Probably you're going to be doing some kind of office work. So it's good to know some office vocabulary. Some of this stuff is very easy. For example, number 12 is, of course, a chair. But what about the other stuff? Now, take a moment at this point to pause the video, look through, and please do not look in a dictionary. I just want to test, do you know from your own knowledge? Okay, so let's go. Number 1 is a printer. Yeah, so it prints out the paper, usually connected to the computer. Number 2 is, of course, a telephone. Now, 2 kinds of telephones. Number 7 is a mobile phone. Actually, mobile phone is more like that these days. You know, we do this for telephones, but telephones don't really look like that. You know, that thing there where it's kind of like, most of these telephones actually look like this, and people talk like that. Telephone, we have what we call a landline. It's connected to the building. You don't pick it up and take it away. We call that a landline telephone, or a home telephone, or an office telephone. Whereas number 7 would be a mobile phone. In America, they say cell phone. Number 3 is not something commonly used in China, but many other countries still use this. This is a fax machine. A fax machine sends a copy of a paper document. Say you've got a document, you've signed that, and you want to send it to somebody in another city or another office, you put it through the fax machine. It will scan it and send it across to them with your signature. I very rarely see these in China. Number 4, a filing cabinet. Okay, cabinet is somewhere where you store things. Filing is what you put in, the documents that you put them in the filing cabinet. So if number 1 is a printer, number 5 is a photocopier. Although many companies will have a printer copier, like it does both printing and photocopying. You can connect it to your computer, or you can put a piece of paper on it and copy that piece of paper. So this is a photocopier. Number 6 is a laptop computer. Mobile phone, number 7. Number 8, in fact, I'm not sure which is 8 and which is 9. I think number 9, I'm not too sure if that's the desk or the mouse mat. You have the mouse and the mouse mat there, number 8 and number 9, I believe. Mouse mat. Number 10 is the keyboard. Number 11 is the monitor. Well, number 15 is just the computer or the processor, but we just call that a PC most commonly, personal computer. So laptop computer, personal computer. Number 12 is, of course, chair. And number 13, briefcase. I think, number 14 is desk. Anyway, there's some common vocabulary for you. I think you need to know photocopier. You need to know keyboard and monitor and probably filing cabinet. I think some of the other ones you probably already know.